This is what trust is. Trust is human.
This video is about how to make your talk unforgettable using one big secret that makes any topic not only interesting but have the audience engaged and hooked from the beginning to the end. Hey there, I'm Rachel. I've watched countless TED Talks and I've done two myself, but for this video I really searched for topics that are boring and complex and how these TED speakers use this one big hack to make it so interesting to captivate and hook the audience throughout. But I've also found examples of TED speakers not using this hack. Let's jump right in. This first TED speaker is Dr. Jill, and she talks about the complexity of the brain. Let's just watch a clip of 30 seconds and then see how she engages and captures the audience.
And I have brought for you a real human brain. This is the front of the brain, the back of the brain with the spinal cord hanging down. And this is how it would be positioned inside of my head. And when you look at the brain, it's obvious that the two cerebral cortices are completely separate from one another. For those of you who understand computers, our right hemisphere functions like a parallel processor, while our left hemisphere functions like a serial processor.
The one thing she does so powerfully is everything she explains, she makes it relatable. And there are several ways that she's able to do this. First of all, she's calm and she's making it conversational. This is how my brain is positioned in my head. She's talking to you. She's also holding up a brain, a physical item. If you have any physical items, it really helps. Another way to make it relatable and conversational is by using simply the word you. She's talking to you. She's talking to her audience.
And when you look at the brain, it's obvious that the two cerebral cortices are completely separate from one another.
And she does this so powerfully. It's not about this is a brain, this is the hemisphere, that's the teaching style. No, she's saying, hey, this is how my brain is positioned. This is how you look at a brain. Another way she makes it so relatable is by using analogies, a great way to make everything you say understandable, to make a complex, boring topic interesting. She's using the comparison of the hemisphere with the computer so that you understand it.
For those of you who understand computers, our right hemisphere functions like a parallel processor, while our left hemisphere functions like a serial processor.
The left hemisphere is like a serial processor. She's constantly pulling you in and engaging you so that you're constantly following and understanding what she's saying. Let's take another example, and staying in the topic of the brain, we're looking at a TED Talk from Lila who's talking about neuroscience, another complex, boring topic, but she makes it really interesting. Watch this first.
Now, there's a particular part of the brain called the hippocampus, which is really important for learning and memory. So when you do stuff throughout the course of the day, your hippocampus is really keeping track of that. It's a bit like a diary. So if I was to ask you what you were doing before you sat down to listen to this talk, you're using your hippocampus to recall that information. But it only keeps information there for the short term.
She's talking about complex neuroscience, short-term, long-term memory, but she makes it very relatable. She makes it conversational. She's talking to you and she's using analogies. She's using the analogy of a diary. We all know that. We all understand what she's saying.
Your hippocampus is really keeping track of that. It's a bit like a diary. So if I was to ask you what you were doing before you sat down to...
She's making that complex topic very simple, very understandable, very relatable. She's also talking very calm and very conversational. Before showing another completely different, great example of using this relatability, let's look at an example of someone not using it, just to compare the difference. And by the way, if you like this video, can you hit that like button and the subscribe? Thanks so much. Let's look at this short clip.
Because science has advanced in so many areas that to keep pushing some of those frontiers, scientists need to learn to collaborate, not just with each other, but with everyone. And that's how big discoveries have been made. The entire field of oceanography was born from citizen science.
She's talking, but she's not really making a point. She's talking, but she's not really saying anything. She's trying to teach, but I don't feel I'm learning anything. She's not making it conversational, not making it relatable, not making it very understandable, and never using the word you. So I don't feel she's talking to me, and I don't feel engaged. Let's look at another completely different example of Dan Gilbert's TED Talk and how he uses 6 ways to make his talk relatable.
And one of the main reasons that our brain got so big is because it got a new part called the frontal lobe, and particularly a part called the prefrontal cortex.
First, it's all about the prefrontal cortex, a very complex topic.
Now, what does a prefrontal cortex do for you that should justify the entire architectural overhaul of the human skull in the blink of evolutionary time? Well, turns out the prefrontal cortex does lots of things, but one of the most important things it does...
Second, he's using a very simple slide that everybody can understand. A tiger, a hamburger, images that are simple, that are clear, that are understandable. Third, he's using the word you, making it relatable again, engaging you, capturing your attention. What does the prefrontal cortex do to you? I want to learn, and I am learning.
You know, pilots practice in flight simulators so that they don't make real mistakes in planes. Human beings have this marvelous adaptation that they can actually have experiences in their heads before they try them out in real life. This is a trick that none of our ancestors could do, that no other animal can do quite like we can. It's a marvelous adaptation. It's up there with opposable thumbs and standing upright in language as one of the things that got our species out of the trees and into the shopping mall.
He's using more ways to make it relatable by moving his body, by moving around, but also by moving his voice and his vocal tone. He doesn't have this monotone voice. I made a video about that I'll link to below. By the way, I'll link all of these talks below so that you can have a reference and watch throughout if you want to watch more of them. But the way you use your voice and that melody in your voice, that also engages and captures the audience. Even if your topic is boring or complex, you can use that variation and make it fun. Another way to make it relatable is when he's using humor. When he's saying humans have adaptation, it's how they jump out of trees into the shopping mall.
It's a marvelous adaptation. It's up there with opposable thumbs and standing upright in language as one of the things that got our species out of the trees and into the shopping mall.
These are 6 ways that he's using to make it relatable, to engage you, to capture your attention. Let's look at another example of Dr. Jill when she's explaining a very complex part of the brain and she's using other ways to make it relatable.
Our left hemisphere is all about the past, and it's all about the future. Our left hemisphere is designed to take that enormous collage of the present moment and start picking out details, and more details about those details.
The left hemisphere is not a simple topic, but she uses her body and your eyes move with her arms and the past and the future, and she explains the details. And
our left hemisphere thinks in language. It's that ongoing brain chatter that connects me and my internal world to my external world. It's that little voice that says to me, hey, you got to remember to pick up bananas on your way home. I need them in the morning.
She makes it real and relatable and saying that chatter, that little voice. And then she goes on by saying, hey, pick up those bananas. That is relatable. That is engaging. That is a complex topic, but not boring. Let's look at a few more clips of TED speakers not making it relatable and keeping a boring, complex presentation exactly that, boring.
To innovate and invent. It allows us to hold the space for the big issues as we go through the work, and it will allow us to meet our needs and maybe our wants within our global means.
There's no relatability. No voice tone variation, no body movement, no movement at all. There is nervousness. I'm not learning anything. I'm not engaged. Let me know in the comments what you think. Let's look at another clip and actually specifically on what type of slides not to use.
And on this chart, on the right-hand side of the columns, you'll see little golden screw-like symbols, little golden spikes that identify the boundaries between those time intervals.
Her slide is so busy, so complex. Even when you're zooming in, I'm still not getting it. I'm not understanding it. My eyes are all over the place. And also her voice is very monotone. Keep your audience engaged. Make your presentation or your talk relatable. Use simple words, simple body language, simple analogies, simple slides. Making your presentation or your talk engaging and relatable doesn't have to be difficult. Take Brené Brown, for example. Her first TED Talk, over 20 million views. She was not the most famous worldwide speaker back then. She's a human being just like you and me, but she masters the art of speaking using super clear examples, techniques to master this art, to engage, to capture your attention. And if you want to know exactly how she does it, then watch this next video. I'll see you there.